So what's good, you guys? It is Will here from PSYCHONAUT Visions, signing back in once again, coming at you with another video today. And on this channel, I've talked a lot about my own personal journey with sex, with a porn addiction, and the things that I've dealt with. It's been a long process and something that spans from my adolescence. And the hard part about modern day society is that we have such easy access to constant dopamine, to constant gratification, and especially when you are this young adolescent that's very naive, it can be so simple to just be blinded to what it is that you're actually doing. And it's weird because I didn't start watching porn and getting into all that at the age of 13, 14, 15, like a lot of young boys might. It was 17 or 18 for me when it really started. And I would still consider that my adolescence. And even when I was 19, and the thing was, I remember at the time, like I said, I was so ignorant. I said I was so naive to it. Like, I would wake up and watch porn. I would get home from school and watch it. I would, before I would go to sleep, I would watch it. And maybe sometimes I wouldn't watch, but I would still masturbate. And it's one of these things that takes time to truly recognize the actual faults, the actual things that it's doing, right? The side effects. And I went on a streak of abstinence in the year 2020. It wasn't necessarily to overcome this porn addiction. To be honest, I didn't realize the actual length that, the magnitude that it was at. I just kind of was giving in to these temptations. The reason I went on that streak, what I called NoFap, and I made a lot of videos talking about it, was to just see what it was like. I kind of just saw a few people talking about the benefits and what you can do, and something to help so quote unquote raise your vibration, as they say. And it lasted over 200 days. I was able to be abstinent for that amount of time. It was just when I went back to it, right, it was a relapse, straight back to square one of watching porn, maybe not as much, but frequently, right? Every other day, every few days. And it was at a point, and it was worse, I would say, before that, but it was still back to that, where I was watching every day. And it wasn't necessarily that in itself that was the harmful part about it. It was the fact that I was watching for more so this dopamine rush and this feeling of wanting something more, to go deeper, to go to another craving, to find something even more than it was just a sexual, pleasurable, lustful act, right? That's the thing that I had so misinterpreted, because I was at a point in 2020 and 2021, maybe very early 2021, where I thought that I was actually gay. I was at a point where I don't want to say I was 100% convinced, but I thought that, yeah, I'm gonna have to face this reality that I'm probably gay. And the reason why is because that those pornographic tendencies, I would just try and go deeper and deeper into a fantasy that would get me hooked, that I would be turned on by, right, and aroused. And so it got to a point where I was watching gay porn. And that is a very difficult thing to admit. It's not easy, man. I don't just tell people this very often. I don't just go up and talk to someone about this. It's not simple. And that's why it took me so long to be comfortable to express it. And the funny thing is, it got to a point where it was even worse than just watching gay porn. I was watching trans porn. I was watching things that were just far out. And the scary thing about this is, you hear this and it sounds bad. I don't even want to tell everything. But I also know that there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people out there. I mean, I can't give you an exact number, but people out there who have gone far more into it than I have, of being hooked on this drug, essentially. It's quite literally a drug, because I've kind of done a little bit of research on it, and apparently the way that it affects your brain chemistry when you're watching it, when you're consuming this content, is that it's very similar and almost identical to the manner that cocaine affects your brain. With these compulsions of just, I gotta have some, I have to. And I was deep into that. I was stuck in that cycle of just wanting to watch porn every day, all the time, and just not knowing at all what I was doing to myself. I had an LSD trip, that I talked about on this channel, where I was with Alex, and he brought up something about his coworker matching with me. I think it was on like a dating app, like Tinder, and apparently his coworker was trans. And the funny thing is, I didn't really match with that person with any intentions. I was kind of just at a point where I was swiping on everybody, but nonetheless, it made me think during that acid trip of like what I was doing. It made me realize how much I didn't understand about my own sexual cravings and my sexuality in itself. And it ended up being probably one of the most terrifying trips that I've ever had, but at the same time, a very self-actualizing experience, because it was like, wow, all of these realizations, all of these epiphanies flying in at once. And 2021 and 2022 were years that I was trying to kind of get over that, trying to overcome it, trying to move forward, but there was still a lot that I had yet to uncover. There was still much that I had yet to understand. I was trying to talk to my friends about it. I made it a goal to open up about it to people. Even on this channel, I made a video just talking about my sexuality and my sex life and how I was so confused and unsure. And little did I realize that much of that obscurity, if you will, had a lot to do with my own decisions, the habitual cravings that I was ceding to day in and day out that I was so unaware of. One of the things that I've really tried to adopt into my own mentality is building good habits. Habits matter more than anything in our lives because they become so commonplace and routine to us. When people get overweight, a lot of times they're just so accustomed to eating the food continuously every single day that their body becomes immune to it. It's just a natural way of life. And the same goes with any kind of other addiction or habits that we build in our lives. You kind of don't realize the way it's affecting you. And being 17, 18, 19, and it was even bad when I was 21, 22. I'm now 23, so it hasn't even been a year since I stopped watching porn. And it has been around 9 or 10 months since I have basically committed to not watching porn. Like I've straight up committed not indulging in that. And I'll get into that in a minute, but I'm still kind of building up towards it. But it takes so much time to ultimately realize the way it's affecting you when you have this habit in your life that is just consuming you. And so I get to a point in like 2021, I think towards the middle and end of that year, where I'm actually starting to want to seek real exposure to sex, right? I was a virgin. And so I'm getting on these dating apps and trying to hook up with people and thinking and being aroused or being intrigued by the idea or the fantasy of hooking up with a trans person, right? Or a gay person. And I'm not saying that those things are not natural to an extent, but it was more so just the fantasy of it that is so alluring. However, it was when that fantasy would become reality and I would willingly go to someone's house in the thought of hooking up with them that I would realize, I don't want this. What am I doing here? And so in those moments, there would be no arousal. There would be no feeling of like, I want this. I would soon leave and just make an excuse to exit, right? And I don't want to go into full detail about those experiences because it's something I'm still figuring out and understanding, but it didn't really go too far into sex. It was just something that, again, was this fantasy, was this otherworldly escape, this reality that I had been delving into through a screen for so long that I thought I could bring to life, and it would be very much a powerful sexual experience. And then all of a sudden it's there, and I realize I don't want this. So then there would be nights where, I'd go to an empty parking lot and just sit there and have a conversation with myself. Sit there and talk and try and get an understanding of what I was doing. I spent nights just in my car all alone, no one around, at like midnight, just crying and trying to get an understanding of what I was actually doing. Because it's not easy to figure out sometimes. And it took facing the fear and confronting it head on, right, to actually sit there and talk about it, to gain the clarity that I needed. I don't blame myself for going and searching for these hookups with people necessarily. Now, I don't think it's something that's healthy. I've really tried to abstain from doing that, and I have been able to. I only did it a few times. It's not something that was like, oh, every weekend I'm going out and trying to meet these people that I'll never see again. But it was still something that I was getting myself into, and I felt very guilty about it. I was just beating myself to a pulp because of it. However, it was more so the roots that I had to discover, that I had to realize and recognize just how much I was harming myself. And the roots were literally pornography. I didn't recognize, and the reason I say this, right, because again, going back full circle, it was not the sexual arousal that got me going. It was just the dopamine of this deeper fantasy of self-betrayal, of doing something that is wild, right? Of, just casually watching sex in the beginning, and then, I should try gay porn. I should try trans porn. What is that, man? I had to face that reality, or else it would just continuously getting worse. Continuously grow worse, I should say. And, it's hard to articulate entirely because there's still components to it that I'm not even fully aware of. But in taking this time away, it's been probably about 10 months now, at least. I'm not sure exactly when I decided to stop watching porn, but there's already been an immense growth in my perception of sex, in my reality of sex. Now, I do subscribe to the notion that sexuality is not so black and white as we make it seem. I think a lot of sex is exploration and something that is just ideas and fantasies and I don't necessarily think it's as confined to a specific gender or a category. However, I have realized that, from not watching it continuously, there is a genuine interest in wanting to have an intimate relationship with a woman, and while I have been away from porn, I haven't been completely abstinent, but I don't think I've needed to be. I don't think that's what it has been necessary. It's been a very healthy manner in which I have occasionally masturbated. I know that might sound kind of like a strange paradox, but it's not through porn. It's something that I will try and actually get a sense of intimacy. I will force myself to not have it be such a sudden, instant gratification experience, and instead think and image an actual loving, compassionate experience with a woman. So post-recording the video, I kind of realized that I left a couple of things out, and one of the biggest things was that being away from porn has at least helped shape or pave the way to redefine my definition of what sex actually is. And a lot of that is very psychological and very subconscious and so complicated. And it's something that you don't genuinely realize until you look back and remember some of the things that you were doing and some of the compulsions that you were ceding to so frequently. And at the same time, I've only been masturbating like once a week, once every couple weeks, and it's been a lot healthier, man. And I'm on the road, man. I'm on the road, but it's a continuous process. And that has allowed me the opportunity to realize, like, all of those fantasies that I was creating in my head were not real. They're not my actual desires. You know, these tendencies I would have with porn, like, they're not correlated with my genuine, intimate, romantic, and sexual desires and wants and needs. And it's something that I'm still healing from. It's truly been a long journey that I've been on with this, and it's something that's continuing. I really want to stay committed, and I am really going to stay committed to being away from porn. Like, I'm not gonna watch it because I realize how much damage it did to me. Right? It's trauma. You know, and I'm not saying that it's the worst thing you can imagine, but it's something that I really went through that I didn't understand the magnitude to it, I guess, until this year. And being away from it and recognizing, like, holy shit, I had no grasp of what sex actually was. To go further into it, when I would watch porn, when I would masturbate, I wouldn't have an erection. And so that caused a complete dysfunction, erectile dysfunction, at an age of 19 years old. And I was so blind to it. I was so just naive, man, and ignorant to what I was doing. Because I would see this temptation, this craving, and just blindly give into it. And man, I realize now, lust is never the answer. But not just that, these temptations, we have to be aware. That's why I go back to the habits. We have to be aware of what we're doing. Self-awareness is so key. You know, think about some of the habits you have in your life, man. Like, I'm so grateful that I was at least able to see a reason to stop watching this. You know, and it's still, like I said, something I'm healing from. It hasn't even been a year since I decided to stop. But I want to get to a point where I feel comfortable being able to love someone, being able to be intimate with someone, and not viewing sex through the manner of the lens that I did, which is pornography. It's so demonic, for lack of a better term. It's point blank period, devilish, hellish, and something we cannot indulge in. I have to stay away from it. There's no other option. And that's what I realized, man. It's like, in striving towards goals, I think there's, even during this period of time where I was going through the porn addiction, right? Like, there was a lot of healthy habits I was still building, whether it's working out, whether it's writing, whether it's meditating, self-reflecting, things of that nature. But there was that one gray cloud, man, and it still is there. But there's no other option than to stay away from it and move forward, because I want to be a good human being, and I want to work with my own shadow, with my own darkness and faults and mistakes. But to do that, you know, there's a certain level of confrontation, and I want to be a good man, you know? I want to be that man that is disciplined and able to abstain from those kinds of compulsions. The man that can provide for someone one day. You know, I hope to meet a beautiful woman and in time, right? I'm very young still, but in time have a family of my own. I'm very goal driven, but this reality, this experience that I had over the past few years is something that's going to take a very long time to genuinely heal from. And I accept that, and I realize that, and I'm willing to go along with the journey, man. Go along with the ride. You know, I'm committed to improving, to abstaining from it, to staying away from it. And every time that I have those temptations to watch porn or to give in to these fantasies or whatnot, I'm always going to remember those times where I was at my lowest, sitting in my car, knowing not what I was doing with myself, what I was doing with my life, what these compulsions were, and just sobbing. in a state of desperation and utter confusion. It's time to grow up and move on from my adolescence, and it's a continuous process, and I'm understanding that it's going to take time. At the end of the day, I do forgive myself, but it's just not something that I can go back to. I can't. There's no way I can. And so I really thank you guys for tuning in and for listening to this video, and along with my journey, because this has been something that has really been at the forefront of my mind over the past probably 5 years. I'm 23 now, so at the point where it's like manhood is here, it's approaching, and it's like I said, a continuous process. I'm not putting so much pressure on myself, but at the same time, I expect great things, and I want to work hard. I want to face difficult challenges and conquer in life. And so again, thank you guys very much for tuning in. This is a very personal video for me, so you're getting a real glimpse into who I am as a person watching this. And I want to say thank you guys. I love all of you for tuning into these videos and for listening, like I said. So much love, good vibes, and Will from PSYCHONAUT Visions signing out.